Dr. Morse, and I'm shooting this video to introduce you to myself and who I am, and a little bit of my background to help you understand more about, again, who I am. I was kind of raised in the Midwest as a farm boy, a lot of work, but a lot of milk products, a lot of dairy products, and I always had congestion in the sinuses and always had a lot of problems with mucus and stuff. I didn't know how bad dairy products were for you on farms, and you just drink a lot of milk. Matter of fact, a lot of propaganda on drink milk all the time, the slick little white ring around the mouth. However, this is a very deadly food, and I even hate to call it a food. But when I was 20, I started building houses, and I was introduced to raw foods. I'd hired a carpenter, and he was bringing raw foods in his lunchbox, and I kept looking at that, and raw foods always looked good to me. Apples and fruits and things. We had a lot of vegetables on the farm, but then a lot of meat and dairy. And so I thought that really looked good, and I started reading books from the natural hygienic movement, which is Shelton and Dr. Tilden and Fry, T.C. Fry, and that whole group of raw foodists. They had a fasting clinic down here in Bonita Springs, and when I moved to Florida, I just really tore into this raw foods. I started fasting. You know, if you go back to the dawn of time, fasting has always been the top of the mountain in healing for animals and man. And so at every level, even all your spiritual giants, Jesus, Buddha, Mohammed, all these people fasted. The Sufis fast. So fasting is a way that you develop some self-discipline, you quiet yourself, and you let the body heal itself. It's funny, you have to understand that the body is the healer here. We're just helping the body with energetics and a little bit of nutrition maybe, but allowing the body to use its own innate consciousness to heal itself. And I read about fruits and fruitarianism, and I started comparing the species, and I looked at the human, and of course the human is very related to primates. Matter of fact, the National Geographic Channel is always calling the Homo sapien primates, human primates. And of course now they found Ardipithecus, a female, human-like individual back in Ethiopia, found her, she's 44 million years old. So it kind of blew in anthropology the kind of concept that we went back 22 million years ago to the primates. But in that discovery, it still was understood that the Homo sapien is a tropical species. So I thought, well, you know, it would be great to try fruitarianism since our bodies are designed specifically for fruit. We're not vegetarians. If you look at the vegetarian animals, the herbivores, they're horses and cows and elephants. They have a heck of a set of grinders. They have 4 stomachs at least, and they got a GI tract 30 times the length of their spine. Incredibly long, and a lot of digestive power going through all that cellulose. Hard for humans to deal with vegetables, truly. I like my salads, but there was a time when I was a fruitarian that I couldn't eat them. They were too coarse for me. And so as I got more into fruitarianism, I did leave the vegetable kingdom behind because they were too coarse, too low in vibration, because as you develop your ability to eat raw foods, your energy starts going way up. And as your energy starts going up, then you get sensitive to low energy things. Low energy foods, dead foods, cooked foods, very low in magnetics, not enough to support the Homo sapien brain and nervous system by far. Matter of fact, in my work in spinal cord injuries and neurological conditions like MS and Lou Gehrig's and Parkinson's, you can't rebuild man's nervous system on vegetables. You have to go into the high level of fruits and their magnetics to get any type of nerve regeneration. I've spent 40 years in working with neurological cases, and we've had some incredible cases from a C3, C4 spinal cord injury. That's one below Christopher Reeves. Complete spinal cord separation, down 12 years. I totally rebuilt her. It took me 11 months to do it. Others have been a little more difficult, and it just depends upon the case. But understanding the raw foods are key. No animal, of course, cooks their food before they eat it. I think that's easy to understand that. When I got into that, I got so self-disciplined, to change from a farm boy attitude with the meats and the potatoes and the milks into raw foods. I had to exercise a bit of self-discipline. In doing that, I kind of got overboard. I didn't realize at the time that I was getting egotistical about this. I see this in many people. Many people, even on the YouTubes that are into raw food, sometimes get real egotistical and judgmental about others. And I learned a long time ago the hard way that you never judge anybody. We're all on this planet together, and we should become a one planet, not through the World Bank consciousness, but through the God consciousness. And all become friends and brothers and sisters, because fun place to be if you're not going through too many ups and downs a little bit. But understanding that diet is key. What you eat, drink, breathe, what you put on your skin is how you bring the outside world of chemistry in, and everything is chemistry on this planet. Those that know a little more can understand that chemistry is just frequencies of magnetic energy, and so now in quantum physics, of course, we proved not only that everything is energy and frequencies, we've also proved now that energy has intelligence, which goes to the omnipresence of God. So those of you that have been on raw foods experience a much heightened degree of awareness and peace and tranquility, as well as a greater need and a greater understanding of the Supreme Being. And this is what happened to me. Always wanted to know who the Supreme Being was. But until I got to raw foods, it was kind of like going through religious belief systems to try to get to that door, and that's not a door that opens that way. The door opens through you. You're the only key, and each one of you are the key to the kingdom, because you are the kingdom in certain ways. A lot of times we think ourselves to be very physical and limited beings. In reality, I see all of you as souls, infinite beings of great light and love, working with these little bitty physical bodies and their emotional bodies and mental bodies, and working through all these problems that we have. So it's important to understand, or at least to allow yourself to start being or looking from yourself as soul, instead of saying my soul, or separating yourself from all life. And this is what creation tends to do, is build separation. So as a fruitarian, that is someone who eats just fruits. I was that way for many years. I lived out in the woods in a Volkswagen camper van. And then I heard, well, try just one fruit. Because if you look at nature, most animals are mono-eaters. They only eat one food at a time. And each food has a different level of consciousness. So when you eat too many foods, you can get confused in the mind. And so if you eat simplistically, you will find that you'll have more energy and more clarity, and you'll digest better and feel better. And then there's this big thing about nutrition out there. But if you look at this, there are breatharians on this planet. There's a beautiful woman from Australia teaching breatharianism. Johnny Love Wisdom was attempting that, of course. There was a yoga in the Wall Street Journal the other day that only takes 2 ounces of water every day, washes his mouth out. Of course, there was a yoga in the Wall Street Journal the other day that only takes 2 ounces of water every day, washes his mouth out, and spits it out. Well, the medical establishment couldn't understand that. It's hard to understand that when you breathe, you're breathing in chemistry. Carbon is carbohydrates, which is essential to mix with oxygen. Hydrogen is your fats, and nitrogen is your proteins, or better put, amino acids. So you are getting these chemical structures, but at a much more refined level. But as you work at a much more refined level, you will find you won't need to eat near as much as you used to. I don't eat hardly anything to stay this size, because I have bounds of energy, because I don't get my energy from foods. I get my energy from the Supreme Being in myself. But I had to learn that. And these higher level diets teach you that. So I went to oranges. I found an organic orange grove for the old Southern Baptist man had been raising for years, and this guy was definitely a channel for God. These fruits were as sweet as honey, and for some reason this navel crop that year was bumper year-round. And navel oranges you never get, start maybe mid-November if you're lucky, and get to the mid of January, late January if you're lucky. He had navels all year round that year, and his navel oranges were this big and sweet and as nectar. I mean, you almost had ecstasy eating them. So I lived 6 months on oranges, you know, and gives you a real heightened sense of joy and peace. But it also creates a lot of out-of-body experiences. You know, there's a lot said with near-death experiences. The show I Survived is touching on this a lot more. And these people were having experience with the light. But let me tell you, you go past the light into different heavens. There are worlds upon worlds with all types of beautiful jeweled cities. I mean, anything you can imagine does exist. You can't imagine outside of God. And the beauty of these heavens can be experienced. You know, if you're here, if one starts to look at and realize they're only on this rock spinning through space for a short period of time. You're only on this planet, you know, while some of the real sick people now with these genetic weaknesses and all the acids in the bodies are not living as long. But, you know, you're not on the planet more than, say, 100 years, 120 years, which is nothing. And so you realize that this is just a touch-and-go planet. You're here for a short time and you take off. All life in creation is just experiences. So if you can leave your body, if you're just using this body while you're here, why can't you travel around in these other worlds while you still have a body? And of course you can. And I was sitting around a campfire one time in a state park in Florida, living in these parks. I was sitting around a campfire and chatting with the group, and this police detective, of all people, police detective said, well, you know, I travel out of the body all the time. And boy, he piqued my interest, and he told me about the Rosicrucians, and so I joined that group, and of course they teach you to astral travel or out of the body travel. There is a Monroe Institute. John Monroe wrote a lot of books on the astral world, which is the next heaven. And of course Jesus described it a lot. There's a lot in Christianity about these heavens. Jesus said, my Father's mansion, of course, has many rooms. Buddha was an avid traveler. Many yogas are out-of-body travelers. Shabda Yoga or the Radha Swami group gets all the way to the Satnam level. And so there's a lot of heavens to explore. And you don't have to believe me at all, but investigate. Never shut things off, you know. You limit your own worlds and your own experiences by your belief systems. And I highly recommend that you open yourself up and enjoy the bliss and ecstasy of creation. There's so much here, but at the same time, very finite. And so if you want to know who you really are, and you want to know who the Supreme Being is, you've got to go beyond creation. You've got to leave the finite worlds for the infinite worlds. And you are a part of that infinite world, but not physically, not emotionally, and of course not mentally. You know, an old wise master said to me one day, he said, you know, if you stop thinking and you stop talking, there's nothing you won't know. And I totally understood what he was talking about. So I practice being here now. Ram Dass wrote a book, a lot of books in the presence of the now. Jesus said, live like little children. Again, meaning live in the present moment. Stop thinking, stop desiring. You know, your desires bind you to the object of those desires, and pretty soon you find yourself as a brilliant soul, not free anymore. You know, I had a client that she had a 5-year-old little girl, and she just gave birth. And this little girl came up to her and said, when she got home, she said, Mommy, could I speak to the baby by myself? And the mother was telling me this, and she said, well, yeah, sure, honey. And she had her newborn in a little nursery, and she let her little 5-year-old into the nursery, and she was sitting at the door listening. And this little girl walked up to the baby and said, baby, could you tell me about God again? I'm about to forget. And that's the problem, my friends. We forget who we really are. because we get lost in creation. You know, it's like a toyland. You open the doors to Toys R Us and look at all the toys. But when you get tired of playing, you set them down and go on. And so that's how it is here in creation. But when you dwell on these raw foods, don't let your ego get too far out of line. Give reverence and love and humility to all life. Always put your ego in the corner. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean anything. It's only you. And if you get that you too big, then it gets in the way of the love and your friends and things. And I see this a lot. Judgment. People judge me sometimes because I'm not all raw anymore. At least sometimes. There's times that I'm 80% raw and 20% cooked. There's times where I'm 100% raw and times I'm 100% fruit. But I've traveled the world. I had a clinic in Portugal. And I fight the IRS because they have been misapplying the tax laws. Ron Paul, if you get a set of cojones on you and tell the public the truth, you've been telling them, they're just not listening, but really get strong and tell them the truth as you know it. It's time that the Americans wake up to the fraud that this government has been pulling over on you. So I fight a lot of dishonesty, and of course the federal court system is a travesty. These federal judges are as corrupt as you can get, at least some of them. I've been in front of a lot of them, and every one I've been in front of have been pretty corrupt. And this has got to stop in this country. You know, sometimes we think we're the best of the best, but that's brainwashing. You know, love is the key here, and honesty and integrity. And in this country, we have to go back to the law. But irregardless, these things are very stressful, and of course hard to maintain a high level of diet, a raw diet, when you're fighting these kind of causes, because there's just so much corruption and evilness, if you will. When I came out of the woods, I opened up some health food stores. I thought, you know, that would be good to help people. I wanted to help people because I saw how fast the body could heal. At a high level of fruitarianism, I could cut myself. I wouldn't bleed. I wouldn't have any pain, and I wouldn't even know it was there. And next thing, it was healed in a day or two. And Arnold Arad in his books talked about that high level of healing that the body can have at these high level of diets. And I didn't realize that until I started reading his book, and I said, oh my God, I just proved that. And I also proved that the lower you eat on the chain, and when you eat meat, you cut yourself, it hurts, it pusses. Meat's very putrefactive, toxic. And yet people love to eat on that dead animal stuff. So I opened up health food stores, and I wanted to help people. And at the time, I lost that kind of fruitarian thinking. I was so I had so much energy. I was teaching people how to have out-of-body travels and to travel into these worlds. And so the energy was, I could just feel spirit. There's a lot of worlds, a lot of heavens, and a lot of levels that you can have fun in. But it doesn't. It still doesn't give you the you. You must always understand who the traveler is and who you are. And at the time I opened the health food stores, I thought, well, whole grain products were good. I had a mill. I made your people their whole grain flours, and we had raw milk cheeses and goat's milk and raw milk of every sort, thinking that was good, you know. My personal friend, Dr. Jensen, if you go back to his Health Valley Ranch, we did the same thing. He offered whole grain breads and whole raw milk cheeses, because at that time that was you know, whole and better. Didn't realize that after age 2 you can't digest milk anymore, because biologically you're supposed to be weaned and you lose lactase, and this makes milk extremely mucus forming even from your mother. But drinking a cow's milk for any human is way out of chemistry, and so it becomes the most mucus forming food on the planet. Those people that come to me that are dairy farmers, their lymph systems are just atrocious. It's a lot, years of work to clean them out. And so when I opened up health food stores and I started eating more that, and that brought me a little further away from fruitarianism. So a lot of things in the world can affect you. And I say this, enjoy whatever you can. Always attempt to be all raw if you can. These high levels of being all raw, this is why you see so many people tearing down fruitarianism with no just cause. We don't have good fruits, of course, in this country, which is kind of bad. But we don't let them ripen enough on the trees. But I will tell you, that level of consciousness of being a fruitarian is so incredible. And when you can regenerate anything, I can regenerate anything. I haven't had anyone come to me that you couldn't regenerate. I had a spinal bifida case, born without L4 and L5. Now that's the lumbar to the kidneys. 3 years on raw, she has L4 and L5. I've had cases of incredible regeneration. Spinal injuries, severe scoliosis, everything you can name, your body can regenerate. It's incredible. There is a blueprint, and you can raise the consciousness of your cells out of their genetic memories and give them a power that they've never experienced. So there's a lot to this, but then it's very simple. And so try to always be humble with your fellow man, even if you're an extreme raw foodist. I know there's a Dan McDonald's out there, and there's all these folks out there that are really tearing into this, and I applaud you very much so. I have 40 years in this field, and when you know, as time goes on, things change in your lives to a certain extent. But I've seen well over 200,000 people, Dr. Jensen over 300,000 people in our lives. And when you work clinically with people, it's amazing what you can get. And what I did, I went to naturopathic school in the early 70s, and then I became a biochemist. And what I did is I created my own healing art. And I just slapped naturopathy, which is holistic looking at life, congressionally approved health modality of the states. Benedict Less coined the word. Simply means that you start looking at life holistically. You don't use supplements, isolates, things like this. And I used botanicals, which is a part of naturopathy in its way, and I just slapped them together. But I used botanicals to clean out the lymph system of the body and to enhance the function of cells. One should lose this idiotic consciousness of diseases. They don't exist. They're illusionary. And it just shows the ignorance of the AMA. This is another mafia out there that has ruined our social structure, that has ruined our financial structure, and they can't cure anything. Statistically, from the CDC centers, of course, and I've said this in other videos, the allopathic community is the top killers of humans on the planet. Over 1 million people die every year at the hands of the medical community, and you can quadruple that for injury and pain. They just don't understand the human body and how it works and how easy it is to rebuild it and heal it. Sometimes it's some work. Don't make me make it too simple. Sometimes you're working pretty hard for your health, depending how low you get on the totem pole. But I really appreciate you listening to this video. I wanted to give you a little insight to who I am and the journey I've been on and my staff. I do have a school, and I teach once a year. We're probably going to go back to twice a year. We were doing it quarterly for years. I've ran radio shows for years, and just to help you folks out, because healing is very simple, very, very simple. And so review my videos on the lymph system and the health, and we have DVDs. We have a lot of things available to you. There's some projects in the works that are so huge that it's amazing. But we must, as a planet, get away from this financial World Bank consciousness of taxation and all this, and really start working with love and enjoy each other's differences. That's important, that we enjoy each other's differences, because that if you look at creation, God never made one thing the same, and that's amazing. So just keep that in mind, and start delving into who you are. You know, go beyond this world, go beyond your emotions, go beyond your thoughts, and spend some time with yourself. Spend some time alone. Get to know who you are for once, and not get lost in creation. Let your angers go, bring your love forth, and don't judge, okay? Use humility, because that'll get you so much further than judgment. And so, thank you for listening, and we'll continue these videos. I could do thousands of them. There's so much to talk to you about, and giving you the understanding how you pull yourself out of pain and misery. Those younger folks out there, you got a lot of genetics to rebuild, so don't get discouraged. Your body can rebuild these weaknesses. So for now, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.